Hello and welcome to this pop-up submissions special dedicated to young adult books. YA is an age category, not a genre. Most publishers would say that YA readers lie between the ages of 12 to 18 years, clearly a vastly divergent demographic. There are countless subgenres within the YA sector, and as an author, you really need to understand your precise readership, or else you simply won't connect with them. And readers can be very fickle. Today's best-selling paranormal romances will probably be tomorrow's pulp fiction. Protagonists of YA fiction tend to be about 2 years older than the reader's age. Most YA fiction is actually bought by adults for children, which is another factor to think about when pitching your next big idea. Publishing is a casino industry, nowhere more so than in the YA area, where taking a risk on a long shot can sometimes hit the jackpot. And that's what we're looking for tonight, tomorrow's next big YA manuscript. And maybe, just maybe, it could be yours. Yeah, here to help me judge today's submissions are crime writing duo Bob and Carol Bridgestock. You may have seen their work filmed on CBS. Now you've got them live on pop-ups. And together with Andy Dickinson, you've seen him reporting the news. Now you can hear his views. It's a very exciting show today because it's the last one of the month. And that means we'll have a monthly winner within the next 6 minutes, leading a very tightly compact pack. Currently is Jane Langan's You, It, and Everything Good, a 1980s coming-of-age story that explores BDSM, fetishism, and Gen E. Well, it's going to be a classic show today if I can remember which buttons to push, so stick around.
When you join our weekly huddle, certain things happen. No, not that. Bring your writing, your book titles, your blurbs, anything really, for expert and sympathetic input. In confidence. Other websites charge a fortune for this kind of thing. In Litopia, the oldest community for writers on the net, is included in your modest subscription. Litopia, we're here for you.
Oh, yes, we are. And let's go straight into our first submission. Submission number one is from Cole Pettifor. There's a QR code there, so please do scan it and go to Cole's website. And it's called Undersong. And this is Cole's blurb. The Clifftop people have always numbered 100. When one dies, another is born, that very same instant. This exchange of life for life holds them in perfect balance with nature. However, when a boy named is born and nobody dies, nature turns on the people with sudden violence. Clouds vanish, as do the wind and waves. The sun's heat bakes the land. As he grows up, the people blame the boy and eventually force him out into the wild, where the needs of survival teach him who he truly is. Let me tell you about Cole. Cole says, I'm a father living in the rocky southeastern corner of British Columbia. It sounds fabulous, actually, especially at the moment. As a teacher of early adolescent children, I'm in tune with the YA genre and its readers. My fiction has been featured in several presses, including Paragon, Emerge, and Steel Chisel, and now, of course, pop-ups with a fabulous reading, I have to say, from Johnny.
Undersong by Cole Pettifor, read by John. Chapter 1. Upon a high cliff on a stone coast, the people lived, unchanged since time's beginning. Their 5 long, low shelters were skimmed in bark. The roofs leaned and sagged in the middles, showing the centuries. In the middle of these, a wide fire pit glowed faintly. White ash danced and lighted into the cooling air of evening. Fish bones lay around the pit. Through these, coon dogs rooted, testing them for any remaining shreds of meat. In the windows of the shelters, candlelit faces smiled and wished each other good sleep. They set their heads into the pillows and closed their eyes, and they dreamed about themselves, for there were no other people in all the world. Chapter 2. In the morning they rose to yet another perfect day. There was the sun, reaching through the cedars that grew tall upon the slope rising from the village. The sky was blue. The sea happily came in, line after line after line of straight, white waves. Over the village of the people, a jagged wall of snowy peaks hung. This was one border of their world. The sea was the other. In this narrow corridor, the people wanted for nothing. They ate what fish they could catch from the shore and fed the bones to the forest and the beings therein, and the gulls circled overhead. When the fish went from the waters, the people pulled their spears from the rafters and hunted bush pig and rabbit and deer. They dug roots and peeled white fern stem. They drank from a spring that never sped or slowed. Their sun-worn skin was untarnished copper. They were tall and long throughout, with hands that spanned wide enough to grip and hold the cedar trees as they climbed. Upon the utter tops of the swaying giants, they clung and watched the wild, endless in all directions. They were better than no other species belonging to that place. They were beasts among beasts. When a lion took a child away in its jaws, the people did not gather to hunt that lion. There was no malice to what it had done. It needed food, so took it. This give and take with all other beasts was the basic bargain of life. The people never questioned their world or theorized about their purpose within it. They ate and slept and enjoyed each day's heat, each night's cool. There were no gods and no prayers. If ever they needed guidance for how to live, they looked to the world around them. The woodpecker hammers the tree, not to announce itself lord of the trees, but to find its next meal. The bear both hunts and hides in the same day. It does not believe itself to be more than it is. Despite its inborn desire to become enormous, the cedar grows only as fast as the available water and sun allows it to. It bides its time, because to do more would jeopardize its right to be. And when it grows new branches upon its crown, it drops its lowest ones to the ground. By shedding those tired old sticks, the young branches grow with all the tree's might, fanning out towards the sun's light. This cue, coming from the cedar, shaped the people's way of life most of all. Like the great tree, so too did they constantly prune themselves back. For as far back as the histories went, the people's number had always been 100. Upon the birth of a child, an old one's body would quit its life. He or she would fall slack and never waken up. Conversely, when by some accident a person found his or untimely death, at that very moment, contractions would seize a pregnant mother-to-be. Just as breath stopped in the throat of the dead man, it began as a wailing cry in that of the newest babe. In this way, mourning and elation lived side by side. Upon birth, the people would pass their children all around. They would weigh the child in their arms and coo and fret. The best things in their larder, they fed the child alone. They brought her on their backs up the trees and showed her the dawn. At night, in the long shelter, the mother held the child to her breast. The people called out from their beds, singing the child a good night.
Thank you, Johnny. Great reading. Kate has just come in. Excellent. What did Kate just say? Excellent prose, but we need a character to hang on to. I totally agree with that. Interesting comment from Lex there as well. In the Genius Room, we call it the Genius Room because they're always right and never wrong. And this is your living laboratory, authors. This is where you get the lowdown on your submission. Live is like a slice through the collective consciousness. It's amazing. There's nothing else like it. Lex said something that I thought summed up the reactions of a lot of other people too. Some interesting world building, he says, and fantastic prose emphasized, but this is 100% tell. Give us this in the form of a story, not a National Geographic special narration. Rachel says, nice idea, does seem like a proposal more than a book. And Johnny, who's just read it, says, it has a depth of feeling to it. Like the title of this, I agree with that as well, Johnny. And Michelle says, hi everyone! Excellent. What did you think, Bob and Carol?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we need a character. I can just see our agent coming back to us and saying, scrap that bit. It was like,
they do tend to say that, like, don't they, agents? Yeah, they scrap that bit.
It was almost
strange people.
It was almost like he's actually writing himself into it. If you like, rather than actually grabbing. So I think it'd have been really if we'd have had a birth or a death at the very start, and then all the oldies like running for cover, like, no, it can't be me that's going. So
what do you think about the basic idea that you heard in the blurb? The clifftop people have always numbered 100. I like that a lot too. Yes, I like the idea.
Yeah, I like the title. Like the blurb.
Yeah,
I was waiting for it. Started off nicely, and then it seemed to, like I said, it's just tell. I was waiting for not all that knowledge. I wanted something to impact there, that there was a death that threw everybody, or there were 2 deaths at once, or there was a wipeout of a number of people. Something happened that really lifted it again. We seemed to just level out on a plateau, and it never seemed to get going after that.
Yeah, I needed more story. All I got really was a sort of rehash of the blurb, which was a bit disappointing. But let's see. Bob and Carol, don't forget, please press your vote button. You haven't voted yet. Andy,
I've done it, yeah.
Great, thanks very much. Andy, you can vote too. And first reactions?
I think it's all been said, isn't it, what the Genius Room is saying.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess have said. I mean, it is. I think it's a really nice setup. I think the blurb, the last couple of sentences of the blurb, made me think, this could be going a bit in a generic YA direction. But then maybe, frankly, that's just the fact that YA has become so popular, and we've had so many books that we can kind of figure that it might be going in a certain direction. But I just thought there was some lovely prose, there was some really lovely writing. Cole, you can certainly write. Some of the writing was just beautiful, but it's all set up exactly like Lex said. It's all tell, and what we really want is something to happen. And any number of those things you gave us in those opening 700 words, you could have given us as an action sequence that we could then have got our teeth into and to have hooked us in.
Cool. Okay, Cole, you're not doing badly here because you've already got 45 and Andy's vote has not come in yet. Have you pressed your button by any chance, Andy?
I have. It hasn't gone through.
Okay, well, we'll have to check that out in a moment, see what's going on there. So you've got 45. You might get more than that, so it could be quite a significant score. The thing is, though, you know the people who this is going to, Cole. You've said as much, and you've got to grab them by the throat straight away, because we are in competition these days ruthlessly with the likes of TikTok and so on. You've got to do something other than just an exposition. I think everyone is united now. Everyone thinks it's a great idea, but the execution at the moment is a little bit slow. Let's go straight to submission number 2. Meanwhile, we'll sort out Andy's voting. And submission number 2 comes from Daniel, who I happen to know is actually live with us on YouTube right now. Hello, Daniel. Yes, there you go. You're going to get feedback right away. You're going to be drowning in feedback, Daniel. Oh my goodness. It's called The Adventures of Ostwald. Ostwald. Might of Magic. YA fantasy, of course, which everything is YA on today's show. And we've got a website there, QR code, and this is Daniel's blurb. The nation of Ostwald is threatened by the greatest evil that the kingdom has ever seen. In an attempt to uncover and defeat the unknown darkness that's infiltrated the order and flourished from within, multiple magicians undertake thrilling journeys of love, loss, and triumph to try to defy the odds that are stacked against them. Can the protagonists overcome evil against all odds, united with humans, dwarves, and gods? All right, tell me about Daniel. I'm 19 years old, says Daniel. So you are actually right at the beginning of your writing career. It was very young for a writer, very young. You've got decades ahead of you, actually, which is brilliant. Still currently studying politics, philosophy and economics, PPE, at university, using this to incorporate microcosms that represent the modern world within my work. Timely and relevant. I fell in love with writing after having an amazing English language teacher. How nice that is. And I think that's so often true, actually, of writers. Full credit and acknowledgement to our English teachers. And have written short stories and poems since then. But this is the first time I've written a novel. I also enjoy sports such as figure skating and tennis. I love philosophical concepts and ideas and thinking about them deeply, as well as respectful debates, and have tried to incorporate these when appropriate within the book. Okay, as well as internal conflict. It sounds like you've got everything. Well, you have got everything, apart from a reading by Jeff that you're just going to get now.
The Adventures of Ostwald, Might of Magic, by Daniel, read by Jeff. Master Woodrow, the lead warlock of the West Magicians Guild, was widely respected by the other 3 guild leaders, and was second in magical skill only to Master Diego, the lead sorcerer of the entire nation of Ostwald. In his duty in overseeing the western parts of the Grand Kingdom, Woodrow's main job was to detect people of magical ability and induct them into the Supreme Order of Magicians, where they were then assigned a guild based on their enchantments, conduct, and their geographical experience. When Woodrow was a boy, he had been sent to the North Guild and was originally one of the least gifted sorcerers discovered. However, his hard work ethic and his thirst for knowledge helped him overcome these hurdles and gain a wealth of magical knowledge. Eventually, this resulted in him gaining incredible skill over enchantments which required very little natural aptitude, although needed exhaustingly hard concentration and great technical mastery that the dedicated magician had focused on conquering. One of his tasks was reaching out to detect those with magic potential and to locate and measure magical signatures. Usually, this exhausting duty was tedious and unexciting, typically just reaching out into the druidic network over a wide area, attempting to seek out those with a faint mark of magical ability with locked powers, thus allowing the sorcerer to locate them and induct them into the order, or to put stronger locks on their powers to prevent them from ever being able to be harnessed if required. Occasionally, Woodrow felt the faint glow of magic and was able to send out a small squad of magicians to search for the person. However, today was rather unusual. People, generally speaking, could have infinite amounts of magical strength. Nonetheless, they would never be able to master a single piece of magic without the help of another witch or wizard. This is because, in a natural state, a person's potential was locked, and they would be able to access their powers without them being unlocked by another magician. The only exception to this was the once-in-a-generation sorcerers, who were born with such extreme powers that with enough concentration and willpower were able to discover their magical energy, known as their Zumba, and harness it. Master Diego was one such wizard. He had enough raw power to quickly overtake all his peers by practicing as a lone wolf, without any formal instruction, before his great power trace was finally detected by Mistress Blaze. She oversaw the Eastern Tower and was an incredible witch in her own right, and discovered Diego after she had gone on a long pilgrimages for the great Scarwin Mountains. Woodrow's day had gone well thus far. He was lucky enough to detect two powerful entities whilst performing the mundane task of searching through the druidic network for any signs of magical potential. Both of the entities were in a similar geographical area near the Great Western Forest. Woodrow had sent a force of young magicians together with an older wizard named Grinhelm to reach for these Zumba signatures, and he hoped they would arrive soon. He was always excited to introduce new recruits to magic. Of course, everyone in the nation of Ostwald heard of sorcery. However, not many people knew of the inner workings of magic. People only knew it existed and regarded it differently depending on which village one lived in. Some celebrated it with joy, and others regarded it with suspicion. Woodrow enjoyed watching recruits' faces light up when he told them of the various types of magical ability he had witnessed and the uses of energy, before finishing with explaining how they would be instructed in the art and learn carefully about how to harness their innate ability with a finesse taught in one of the guilds. On the auspicious 7th day of every moon cycle, he would take recruits to the unnerving speaking ceremony, where Master Diego searched their souls for their entirety, so he could find the loyalties, commitments, and nature to allocate them to the best guild possible, where they'd all be given the opportunity to flourish.
Thank you, Jeff. Quite a lot of praise here reading that. So Daniel, I know you're with us, so I'm just going to let you browse all the extraordinary feedback you've got here, actually. I mean, I don't know where you could get such live, real-time feedback as you do here. Now, great reading, says Michelle, absolutely. Eva says, reads like a history book, not a story. Matt says, it's a really interesting idea. It's not a really interesting opening. I don't mind the writing, but I'm waiting for the story to start. And Galadriel points out that Ostwald seemed like a protagonist. I thought that too, actually. I thought that was the name of our protag in the title, but actually it's a nation. And Rachel says, brave Daniel! Yes, let's hear it for Daniel. Daniel, for submitting so young. Good luck. Can we just get Jeff's feedback here, because he was our narrator after all. And actually, interestingly, I don't know if you know this, Daniel, but our narrators choose what they want to read. So he chose you because he wanted to read this. And Jeff says, good voice, story flowed, kept my interest, and yes, I would turn the page. So fine, let's go to Andy. Bring out your inner child. What's it saying to you?
Child, big guns. On the subject of child, I do think this read from the blurb actually maybe a little bit more middle grade than YA.
Might be.
Maybe I think it's the title that kind of gave me that, and that the blurb was kind of heading that direction. I thought the blurb was fine. There's a big sentence in the middle there. You might want to look at splitting that up a little bit. But I mean, crumbs, you're 19, you're doing really well. It's a good opening sentence, and it started rattling along quite well. But again, much like the previous submission, it was just lots and lots of telling. At least we had character. We did have character in there. There was a lot of names. I think you might want to cut down on some of those names in the first 700 words. But I think really we want action. We want some showing. We want an event actually happening. You got to the point where you said, and then today things were different. And you pique our interest, and then you started giving us more backstory. I thought ultimately it was like you're writing the rules of your world, which is brilliant. We want you, we need you to know the rules of your world. But I think you need to question whether we need to know the rules of your world quite so quickly. And I'd submit that I don't think we really do. I think we need a character going through something that we can then hold our hat on. I think you need to put us in the scene a little bit more than you were. But hats off to you. You're extremely young, and it's a good first try.
See, all this solidarity amongst writers, it makes me out to be the world's biggest bastard, actually, because I'm the guy who's going to make money out of it. And everyone's being so supportive to you, Daniel. I hope you're basking in all the love there. But let's see what Bob and Carol are saying.
Well, I agree with what Andy said and what a lot of people have said. I was waiting for it to jump, and when we got to that bit today, Master Diego, I thought, right, this is the punch coming. This is going to hit us now. We're going to get some actual hard and fast action and drip feeding the rest of it as we go along. And it never happened. And I think somebody else said it was more like, to me, then it went into a synopsis. It was turning me off as time went on, because it just was giving us the rules of the game. They were like, in some respects, like reading instructions, which you don't want. And 700 words, you've got to, like you would know, Pete, as the agent, you've got to whack people straight between the eyes.
Oh, I like whacking them,
yeah. But great definitely. Start, great potential there. And it's like we all do. You have to learn the craft.
Daniel, can I just say before we go, great voice, and I'm in exactly the same position as you're in really right now, because I'm trying to start the book, and I'm also trying to condense everything that somebody needs to know. And although I know it all, your reader doesn't need to know it all.
Yeah.
So put that to one side and then start again with all that information that you know, and then drip feed it.
You see this so often. Advice. You see this so often. It's I don't know who originally coined the phrase "kill your darlings," but it's so true. You it's the stuff that you like the most that quite often you've got to get rid of. It's so sad. oh dear. I need to say something to you, Daniel, about trademarks. This is very dull, but it's very important. You've just used somebody's worldwide trademark, Zumba, which is the trademark of Zumba Fitness LLC, formerly known as Rumbersize. I think it's a neologism, which is a new word. And that means they've created this word to describe their intellectual property. They will be after you like crazy if you do this. So please don't. I mean, you got to be aware of these things for a start. Don't, if you send it into a publisher, and if that publisher just happens to do Zumba, which probably about 100 million people do in the world, then, it won't go well for you, actually. It'll either create a bad impression as far as the publisher is concerned, or heaven forbid, if this got published, you would have legal letters coming for you. So let's not do that. I agree with what everyone else has said. It felt like you were giving me a briefing. And just think about your reader, not too different to you in age range, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years younger. And you're sitting them down and you're saying, I'm going to tell you a great story. Would you have kept their attention after these 700 words? I don't think it would. So that's the situation. You've got to imagine your reader. What can I do to enrapture them in the next few seconds? That's all you get. All you get. But what you have got is a very, very respectable 46 points. I think we should try one more, shall we? Yeah? Here we go. Player number 3 today. A Fall from the Rise. A Fall from the Rise. Why a dystopia? It's almost synonymous with the dystopian writing, or at least it has been over the past few years. I think that's changing, personally. What's coming next? Ooh, maybe we'll find out from Jodie. This is Jodie's blurb in a future where animals no longer exist and people have become the replacement for meat. Baxter Selfield. Baxter used to be a firm of butchers, didn't they? UK, I like that. Yeah. Tries to navigate her way through the world and stay alive. Coming from impoverished regions, she unexpectedly finds herself climbing the ranks in a world controlled by the hires. Trying to stick to her morals in the corrupt but wealthy region of the centre, she attempts to help those less fortunate than her, but is she willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the greater good? That is the question we all ask ourselves these days, isn't it? Let me tell everyone about you, Jodie. During lockdown last year, after completing my university degree, which you presumably did via Zoom, as everybody else did, I decided to finish the novel I started a while ago. A Fall from the Rise is the first book I've finished, and it's reignited my passion for writing. Good. I hope we don't put it out tonight. They won't. I might. I was inspired to write the book as a way to loosely address animal agriculture, pressing the right buttons for me, and the way animals are treated in the present day by creating a dystopian world where humans are made to fill this role instead. I like that. Nice satire. I wanted to write a story that would be entertaining but also thought-provoking. Good. That's the heart and soul of YA, actually. I didn't want the message to be overwhelming to readers or to take away from the story, but it is there in the background for those who want to think about it. I've since started writing a follow-on book and would love to get them published. Hopefully this will be one step closer towards your goal, especially since we've got a reading from Emily.
A Fall from the Rise by Jodie, read by Emily. Chapter 1. Baxter Selfield. I glance up to the front of the hall, careful not to move my head. I am perfectly camouflaged amongst the other students. We all wear grey overalls with heavy-duty black boots. Everybody looks the same, even down to the colour of our hair. It's mainly brown here, though mine has uncharacteristic auburn tones. Our hair is short. A number 7 is the longest cut you're allowed. No patterns, just an even cut. When the overalls were introduced, the majority of the students tried desperately to be different, rolling up their sleeves, safety pinning the waist to get a more cinched-in look, and, as a last resort, simply making their collar stand up. But you have to admire the hires. They punished any form of individuality, and after a measly week, all 300 students here complied. So now we all look practically identical. Something I don't mind as, believe me, there are bigger things to worry about. The head is on the stage reading out the names of all the classmates that are graduating this year. She must have been a student herself not long ago, 5 years maybe. Her grey blouse and black flared trousers match the colours of our region, but the red beaded necklace she sports is the colour of a region closer to the centre. Although the red has faded, looking almost as close to the pink shade of the north, the pop of colour is unmissable in these bleak surroundings. Every 10 names or so she touches her neck, as if checking her jewellery is still there to show she isn't one of us. She must have connections with the centre. I'm certain the other students have seen it too. All the students graduating from the SWBG Education Institute with no connections to the privileged people of the centre will coyly ask her about employment soon. They'll slip in an egotistical line about how hard-working and committed they are, adding the feigned afterthought of, "Oh, by the way, could you recommend me for a job?" As if she would want to take pity on us. Anyway, the necklace has probably been passed down generation after generation, with her having no living relative near the centre anymore. She probably just got lucky getting head of SWBG Education Institution, and has no real influence. Or, the idea can't help but install fear in me, the necklace is a test designed to trip up those of us who think we are worthy of employment near the centre. Maybe she'll remember everybody who asks her for a job and make sure we are punished for being so brazen. Either way, it's probably not worth the risk to ask. Probably. The head calls my name again. I step up onto the stage. Surprisingly, I don't feel particularly anxious anymore about this pivotal moment, until I look at the head. There's something about her that makes my skin crawl, and I can't help but shudder as her spidery hands almost graze my own when she hands me my graduation card. I could have sworn she noticed my repulsion, but she keeps her composure, except for her eyes which almost seem to light up in excitement. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid. I sit down on the next available chair lined up around the edges of the hall, tucking my proof of graduation into my overall pocket. That was it then. It really is happening. I find it difficult to sit still as I try not to think about what is to come. It's 1:20 p.m. You can feel the tension in the room, eyes shifting to the clock mounted at the top of the back wall. The occasional movement of heads as students in a less fortunate seat crane their necks to get a glance of the time, ebbing so slowly towards 4 p.m. Others fail to appear nonchalant, trying to be inconspicuous as they glance towards the ceiling, then quickly run their eyes towards the black-framed clock. 1:21 p.m. There is interrupted silence. Nobody speaks but the head, whom continues to read out the graduation names. She's up to Turner now. Not long left.
All right, great comments here. And the reason why it's called the Genius Room is that they always get it right. Always get it right. Talk about the wisdom of crowds. God. So I threw out this quote, "Kill your darlings," and I got corrected instantly by the Genius Room. It's "murder your darlings," says Vagabond. Vagabond Heart, Sir Arthur Coller Cooch said it, according to Google, not Faulkner. "Murder your darlings." Thank you so much, Genius Room. Matt says, once again, great blurb. I thought that too. Rachel's getting excited. Ooh, she says cannibalism. I wonder what's for tea today, Rachel. Blurb has me leading forward, says Jan. Great, lots of excitement there. Michelle also likes the title and blurb. Barbara says very, very accurately and very importantly too, actually, Jodie. Presentation is not great. It's sort of, it's awful to look at, to be honest. And what we do is we actually put on screen the very document you send through. So if it's weird, and there is another one today actually that I've had a peek at that's got some strange presentation. This isn't as weird as we get sometimes, but it's still not that easy to read. You've got to pay attention to it. Imagine you're reading the end of a long Friday. 50 submissions, unsolicited submissions. The ones that look a bit difficult or a bit eye straining. You're not going to give much attention to. Bob and Carol.
Yeah, I really like that. I followed it, and I'd like the mention of the cannibalism to come in earlier. I think that'd be quite a sort of holding breath moment.
Something to get your teeth into. Oh yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the part where it slowed it down, where we were having a lot of description and it slowed it down a bit. Could she do that as a conversation? Perhaps could she speak to somebody and like they pass, whispering to each other or something? I think that could quicken it up a little bit. But no, I liked it.
Not everybody likes meat, Carol. Not everybody likes meat, so there could be a problem there. But no, joking apart, I thought it really draws you in. You can relate to the conditioning of the group. People there all looking alike.
Handmaid's Tale.
Police officers, all in uniform. So you can relate to it. And I thought, in comparison, we're not decrying the other two, but this one to me steps above.
Good, excellent.
And I enjoyed it. I would go reading this, carry on reading it to see where.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. You're not the only one, because also live on YouTube right now, Michael is with us. Thank you very much for being with us, Michael. And some real good elements, says Michael, in the story setup. My 70-year-old mother, not quite YA, but close, wanted to turn the page. Yes, that's just what we're looking for. Fantastic. Andy.
I'm not as enthusiastic, I'm afraid. Apart from right, I'm not mad about the title. I think where you got us excited was cannibalism, because as a subject, cannibalism isn't one we talk about that much. I mean, like even in the realms of horror films, cannibalism is a subject that rarely gets to a big audience.
Oh, sometimes it's medium rare.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I take Pete. But I think that there is, on a more serious note, that there's something really smart about this. Using dystopia as a way to talk about vegetarianism, our need for the planet to survive, if it is going to survive, and yet eating meat at the same time. There's some real smarts in your setup. So I'd say congratulations on that. Also, Baxter Selfield is a brilliant name. I love that. I was a little bit confused that Baxter was a her rather than a he. But hey, I'm old, so maybe that's the reason for that. Yeah. I think just finish on the blurb. I think the last couple of sentences in the blurb, I'm not really sure you're giving us much of the plot. But what really not upset me, but what really let me down, I think, with this was unfortunately the grey overalls. I think grey overalls in the dystopian YA genre have just been overdone.
Yeah,
totally. The Hunger Games is like the high end of YA, certainly success-wise. And then we looked at the Diversion earlier, which I mean didn't read them, but films-wise, by God, by the third one, I was like, please just make it stop. It was just
I think we've done it a bit, haven't we? Really?
Yeah, it was so overdone. So I think although your writing was nice, I wouldn't say starting with grey overalls, which is so synonymous, or that word, with this genre is really the place to really set your story out. There was some nice stuff in there, but as I said before, the text was quite dense. I'd say if you're going to start in graduation, I think that's a really canny place to start. Again, I mean, graduations are quite an odd experience, I've found. Your feelings, your emotions are, and it's a whole thing of formality. Am I going to lose my friends? What's the point in all this anyway? Because we've already got drunk and celebrated. Or in your setup, am I going to go out of graduation and then get eaten? So I'd say there's probably more that could have done in a more exciting way in that setup.
That tasty little
go out for a meal.
Exactly. Go out for a meal.
Go out for a meal.
The thing, I totally agree with you.
You're my dad.
Here we go now. Okay, we've just gone off.
Delivered to your door.
Nothing else is going to be serious the rest of the show now. Sorry, that's entirely your fault, Jodie. The thing is that I think you're absolutely right, but what you're seeing there is potential, actually, I think, Andy. And the thing is that she did say that it's happening, but I'm not that apprehensive about it. I'm not really that worried about it. And I kind of right at the beginning of the book, I want to start to pick up those emotional vibes straight away. And you mentioned about half a dozen emotions actually that you might feel before, during, and after graduation. And I think we want to experience those, definitely. Totally agree with you on that. Let's just go back to the Genius Room, who are nothing if not productive today. My God, they're on steroids. Matt says, good point. Maybe start with human teeth ripping into human flesh. And Eva says, clicking noise. I don't know what she means. Clicking noise.
I think someone's playing with their pen and you can hear it.
Okay. It could be me. I don't know, my bones or something. That's brilliant. I hope you're...
That's my Zumba, Pete.
I'm happy with that. I hope you like that, Jodie, because, you've got amazing feedback from people. The most important thing I haven't said is that there's elements of really nice voice in that, I thought. And that's one of the things you look for. Because most people, for reasons we won't go into right now, most writers don't have very much voice to begin with. And you want voice. Your voice is so important. The stronger your voice, the better chances you have of getting published, and ultimate success, actually. And I felt really there was quite a good voice coming through, only in parts, but it's there. Your voice is there, and that's the important thing. We don't get a voice in every submission by any means. Let's have a look at something else now. We're 3 submissions into the show. Let's look at how the numbers are stacking up. Pretty tight. You got Cole. I think you're with us now. You got 60. Jodie has just pipped you the 62. It's close. It's neck and neck. And 47 for Daniel. So 2 more submissions to go. Someone's already voted on submission number 4. That's very naughty. All right. So I'm going to cancel those votes right now, because we do from time to time get emails from people saying, it's all put up job, it's not live and all this kind of stuff. It is. If you saw the cock-ups happening earlier, it's definitely live. So we're going to have to edit that out. So before we get to the next submission, I am actually going to zero those votes because someone's been very naughty. It does happen from time to time. I'll just zero them out. But before that happens, I think Bob and Carol, we want you to. I tell you what. Why don't we have a look? First of all, at your magnificent website. There it is. I have no idea how many books that you've written together. For those people who don't know Bob and Carol, and honestly, is there anyone in the world at the moment who doesn't know Bob and Carol? Amazing police career between you, something like 500 years in the force, murders solved, all kinds of things, just a totally distinguished career. Then went on to write no end of police procedural books and advise on all sorts of interesting things like television and this, that, and the other. So I'm going to ask you not just about your website, but what's this we're seeing? Tell us about that.
Well, When the Killing Starts, it's actually book number 7 of the D.I. Dillon series that we wrote, first of all. And D.I. Dillon is loosely based on Bob and his career and our home life. So throughout the series, you actually meet Bob, because Deadly Focus was the first book that we wrote, and you get to follow them through a few years of their life at home as well.
Nice.
Now, When the Killing Starts was actually loosely based on a murder that Bob he was actually part of, and he received the Dennis Herban Trophy for great detective work in West Yorkshire Police for that murder. And and it very loosely based on it, but that's why we ended up on the CBS channel, Written in Blood, about that murder. And that's actually in, if you'll just pass me that, Bob, it's actually written,
it can't be protein.
It's actually written up in one of the crime magazines.
I don't know how you guys managed to get any words written, actually. You're going on Bob's just going on and on, isn't he, really?
Oh, he does.
Well, no, I'm not doing any talking. Pete. You know what's going on.
Relatively speaking, relatively. Let me just ask both of you, completely off the wall. We're dealing with YA tonight, young adult, anything from 12, 13 to 18 or so. So going back, casting your mind back to when you were that age, what books really made an impression on you? Maybe sometimes even, of course, books at that age can change your life. What books?
Yeah, for me, it was actually The Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, wow. Was it?
And that brought about the love of reading biographies and autobiographies. But I can't watch anything to do with the Holocaust. It really does upset me. Like I say, we've been in the police for 48 years between us, and yet something like that, I cannot bring myself. I should, because I should face it. These people went through it, and I should respect that, and I should actually bring myself to watch it just to respect that. But I just can't. And reading Anne Frank's diary was a definite change in my life.
Wow.
I'm smiling, Pete, because she says I talk a lot. But no, I as a youngster, between that age group, I didn't read a lot at all. I think the first book I ever read was Tom Sawyer.
Was it really?
And I really was. I'm an impatient person, I've got to move from one thing to another. Love the outdoors, and I think between those age group, my thing was sport, and I never got into reading at all till in later life, and a lot of that was textbooks and law. And it's only in later life that you
started reading for pleasure.
I found the time as I've got older. Into that.
Well, it's always a deferred pleasure, actually.
Club.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter when you start, actually. It just means you've got more great stuff to uncover. I was going on to a significantly younger person the other day about P.G. Wodehouse. He'd never been exposed to P.G. Wodehouse, and I just thought, you lucky sod, because you've got so many great books there, amusing, entertaining books, great books for lockdown, actually. Are they going to change your life? No. But are they going to entertain you? Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring Andy into this now. Andy, same question to you. When you were slightly younger than you are now, what books were formative for you? What made an impression on you?
Gosh, it's hard to say, really.
Yeah.
I do remember reading both the books mentioned, actually, Tom Sawyer and Anne Frank in school. They were certainly a staple. Lord of the Flies. To be honest, when I was a kid and I started reading for pleasure, because I'm really into films, I've always liked films, so I was always grabbing books that were films. So Back to the Future, Gremlins, Star Wars. You know, and if anyone remembers the miniseries V, I loved that when I was a kid. When I was about 11. That was the best thing.
Graphic novel too, wasn't it? Graphic novel.
Yeah. So I devoured stuff like that. And to be honest, the James Herriot books, they were in the library at school, so I read all them and all.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. All great recommendations for the new YA. Let's just go to the Genius Room and see. Rachel says, I felt exactly the same way as you, actually, Carol. That's interesting, isn't it? Jan says, The Outsiders. Oh, yes, absolutely. And Vagabond for me, East of Eden. East of Eden. I haven't read that, actually. Blew me away at age 13. How precocious you were. First grown-up book I read. It's all coming in now. Johnny says, my big moment was Tom Sawyer too. Oh, there you go, Bob. Yeah, and then as young and aspiring hippie, I discovered J.R.R., of course, no one's mentioned Tolkien yet, who narrowly got published, only with the greatest of difficulty, just like Joanne Rowling, actually. You know, we nearly missed two of the biggest bestsellers in the whole of the 20th century. But maybe we won't miss them now because we've got two more submissions. Fourth submission today comes from James. Hello, James. If you're with us live, let us know, please, on YouTube. It's YA science fiction this time. Good. The stars are yours now. That's your title. I rather like that. First impression is good. This is James's blurb. History has ended. Humanity resides in a great city where there is no danger, no adversaries, and no endeavour. This paradise is tended by a hypersentient consciousness known as Core. 17-year-old Kyla Law lives in a reservation, a community that still believes in democracy. She plans to overthrow the city's sentience and secure her people's freedom. To do this, she has made herself into a weapon, a virus carrier. Oh, not again, please. A virus carrier who will infect Core and destroy it. All right. Yeah, everyone's reacting strongly to that title, James. Short and sweet from James. I'm a professional seafarer. Ahoy. Sorry. Probably get that a lot. Don't hit me.
Dear.
Having served in the Navy for 16 years, when on leave, I live in rural West Sussex with my husband and cat and enjoy Southdown walks and reading historical non-fiction. That sounds absolutely sublime. What also sounds sublime is today's reading from Ali.
The Stars Are Yours Now, by James, read by Alison. If my chest were a cannon and my heart the hot lead ball, I'd still shoot. I would shoot my heart out because I'll do anything, everything to destroy it. So long as it exists, we'll never be free. Problem is, metaphors don't hurt. It's been easy for me to think I'll do it and say I'll do it. I've been doing that for years. Now's the moment. Time to act. And to exhale. Kyla? With a flick, I open my eyelids to the sunlit mountains. To my right are the grey peaks set against an ever-blue sky. To my left, open prairie. Normally this epic land settles me, but not today. Larch is staring at me. Kyla, you okay? He gets a tightly screwed forehead for such a stupid question. Cousin, I'm about to take a pill and erase my memories, possibly, probably, forgetting who I am forever. So no, not that okay. My horse's thick muscles shift beneath, and his strength does calm me. He's a thoroughbred, which makes him awesome, but also highly strung. No matter how I try, I'll never hide my inner stress from him. It's okay, Max, I soothe, leaning into his ear and getting a whiff of horsey sweat mixed with dewy grass. Larch breaks his staring. I'm calm, really I am. I've chosen to do this. I'm okay, I tell him, like saying it aloud makes it true. Larch is more than a cousin. He's been my friend since forever. But he thinks too much, gets wrenched and double stuck by his own thoughts. If I thought as much as him, I'd be frozen by indecision. And I can't afford to shake my aim. If I'm the arrow, my aim and course must be perfect. else I'll not hit my target. Larch wrinkles that smooth forehead of his and turns his back, jumping into his own saddle. I straighten my back, wanting to appear steady and resolute under fire, like a fighting general of the past. Max snorts, shaking his mane. Come on, boy, I am trying. The beating heart cannon metaphor hasn't really helped, and it's too bloody anyway. I don't actually need to sacrifice myself for democracy to live. I just need to be like an arrow, keep my aim true. That's better. A good simile is always less melodramatic than a metaphor. I'm like an arrow. No need to blast my chest out. But there's still a sacrifice to be made. To defeat the AI, I must wipe my memories. To deceive it, I must deceive myself, mess around with my mind, my one and only, and there ain't no money-back guarantee for memories. Larch turns to me and crinkles his lip into a grin. Smiling? At a time like this? What? I snap. Oh, nothing. Just thinking this might be the first time I beat you at anything. I can't stop a grin in return. He's looking at me like I was his cousin, just the girl he's grown up with, out on a ride. And I love him for it. Larch, this race won't count, I reply. The plan is simple. To be certain of duping the AI, I must erase all knowledge of my mission from my mind. That means creating a convincing cause for my memory loss. We decided, seeing as I live on a ranch, the amnesia-inducing accident should be whilst out riding. Larch drops a smile. Kyla, I just want to tell you, you know, I think you're really brave. So much for lightening the mood. I meet his eyes. Don't start getting real now, Larchy. It doesn't suit you. And it isn't helping me. His face breaks and the frown lifts. Fine, have it your way. We line our horses up and he starts the countdown. We've raced back to the ranch from this spot many times. The track on the left is marked by a row of posts, and there's a ridgeline with a single ash tree on the right. That tree also marks the hidden gully. The main reason I always win. I never slow to make the jump. Larch always does. Not today, though. This time, I will make myself fall.
All right, wonder where that's going. Good dialogue, says Johnny. Natural. Love the voice of the writer, says Jan. And the reading is great. Always great, of course. Hannah says, slight repetition of the memory wiping thing, but overall very engaging. Very positive comments there. Lex, love this writing, glad you're enjoying this. Top of the class tonight, says Johnny so far. Michelle, great voice. Vagabond says, yeah, probably a YA in feel. Hannah says, good YA voice. What did you think there, please? Andy.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's definitely the best submission of the night so far. I like the title. Your blurb again, it towards the end it started to remind me a bit of Mortal Engines, and I wasn't a massive fan of Mortal Engines. I'm going to pick, just because I'm a journalist, and you know, call me whatever name you want because of that. But history is ended is a really nice sentence, and it's a really lovely opening line for a blurb. Having said that, as a journalist who, you know, deals in praise in the name of truth and what have you, and then like, well, as it really, you know, how exactly does history end? And within kind of, as we get deeper into your manuscript, we can tell, well, you know, erase my memories. Well, that would suggest there's your own personal history. And then fighting in general of the past, well, that would suggest that then there is some kind of history. So I'd just be careful a little bit when you're kind of like, you know, when you've got a great sentence like that, to make sure it actually does make sense within the world that you're creating. Having said that, the world you created was good fun. Your prose was really nice. I love the opening, first few parts, down to the problem is metaphors don't hurt. That's just really great. I was a little bit at sea because you were doing, in a sense, the opposite of the other people we've seen so far done. You were doing lots and lots of showing and giving us lots and lots of character, which is what we asked for. So brilliant. But I was a little at sea. But then when you got to the amnesia-inducing accident while out riding, well then brilliant. I know where you are. I know what you're trying to do, and I know how you're trying to do it. So yes, the top marks. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Good. Can I just ask you, Andy, because you've given this a good old analysis here. So I'm just quoting from the blurb. She plans to overthrow the city sentience and secure her people's freedom. I mean, is that I don't know, is that a big enough threat, big enough objective, big enough peril? I mean, basically, these people are all living quite happily, if somewhat boringly, under AI sentience. And I guess that's probably the way we're going to end up living sooner or later in any case in real life, because that's the problem these days. You can't really do dystopia because it's going to happen tomorrow. Is that something we can identify with? Is it a big enough objective, do you think?
I think we identify with it in the way that you just have, because I think those fears are current and they have currency, but what you're not giving us is a reason.
Yeah.
And that's why and that's why in a sense I'll jump to something like Mortal Engines, because it's like, well, this feels a little bit similar to that. You know, you've got this utopia, in that case on wheels, and we know the protagonist wants to destroy it. So there's always going to be a reason. But yes, I think your blurb would be far more powerful if you gave us that reason. And also, I think then you would strayed away from the kind of generic YA stuff that we could possibly fall into.
Yeah, we don't want that. A little bit at sea, says Hannah. Oh, we're still doing the nautical jokes, are we? Oh, good. That's nice. Lex is given if you can read it, like 3 points. Sorry, it gets so small. Thing is, guys, in the Genius Room, if you've got a slightly longer comment, just put it into 2 sections, please. Otherwise, it will get reduced to kind of pointless size. But there's Lex's comment there, and really, really positive stuff. You should be very pleased with that, James. Let's see what RC says, the collective known as RC.
Yep, very enjoyable. I think, like most people have said, it's intriguing. You want to know what's happening. It flows quite well, you know, and it is. You would turn the page. You would look. This is something I would read and turn the page and to see where it's going, and hopefully it'd stay at the same pace. And I like the dialogue because we get a lot of information, but it's quite impactful. As it's told, and it's quite pacey. But yeah, I liked it. From start to end. I thought, well, could have listened to a little bit more of it just to see what the next venture was.
That's very nice.
The writing was very competent, really polished. I really enjoyed it. Yeah,
and well read.
Some
by
really
Ellie.
good. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, although strictly speaking, you shouldn't be giving marks for the reading. That's the thing.
Well read by Ellie, but but no, really
that's great.
That one.
Okay, so already that's fantastic. That's brilliant. So look, guys, we already do know that well, let's just look at that again. Just one more submission to go now. It's really quite tense. You just got another point while I was talking. That last sentence, like 3 seconds long. You've got another point there, James. I don't know when it's going to stop. You got 76. That's 76. And Cole was previously in the lead with 65, and Cole was challenging, very closely challenging. Winner from 2 weeks ago, of course, who was Jane with You, It, and Everything Good, that I thought probably was going to go on and win the month, but now not so. Not so. It's going to be James Beadle, or is it? Because we do have one more submission.
The Stars Are Yours Now, by James, read by Alison. If my chest were a cannon and my heart the hot lead ball, I'd still shoot.
Stop it. It was a good reading by Ali, but really, you can have too much of a good thing, right, guys? Okay, yeah, we have a final submission now. It's getting a little bit tense here. Final submission of the day is from Emma. Hello, Emma. You don't need to be apprehensive. You can be nervous, but not apprehensive. It's YA fantasy adventure, and it's called Fire Awakens. Fire Awakens, Book 1 in the Earth Guardians series. Here's Emma's blurb. Until now, Chione, I'm going to say Chione, I think that's probably right, but correct me if I'm wrong, please, Emma, because I know you're live with us on YouTube, which is great. Chione has lived a comfortable and predictable life, carrying her duties lightly, unaware of her incredible innate power. Yesterday, everything changed. Framed for the murder of her mentor, she's fleeing for her life, pursued by the wrath of Egypt. These are troubled times. The pharaoh's rule is waning and new forces are emerging. Chione must keep her power safe from those who would abuse it. A power that has the potential to save or destroy Earth itself. And I'll tell everybody about our author Emily. Following nearly 20 years working in corporate communications, Emma tried to make a living by writing personalised children's books, which nourished her soul, but not her bank balance. Sorry about that, Emma. Her current job combines crisis management. You must be working so hard at the moment, every day, new crisis. Lots of opportunity there. Emergency first aid and herding cats as she works in a primary school, which is kind of crisis management, right? When she is not looking after her own children, and Roland, a very naughty Labrador puppy, Emma likes to write. And hopefully Emma will also like to listen to this reading from Beverly.
Fire Awakens, Book 1 in the Earth Guardian series, by Emma C., read by Bev. Chapter 1, Escape. Hunkering down in the mud, amongst towering papyrus, eyes wide, ears pricked, she hardly dares breathe. The papery stalks and swaying starburst flowers above her head will betray her slightest movement. She can smell her own fear, pungent and sour. She had hurried to the river through the gloaming, hoping to find a fisherman to take her towards the delta. Before she was missed, before news of the murder had reached the riverbank. She could pose as his daughter, she had reasoned. The river was always crowded with small fishing boats, but it had been deserted. As the night thickened and hardened, the people of Memphis, fishermen and noblemen, had gone to their homes, afraid of the darkness that had arrived in the middle of the day and of what it might portend. Squirming further into the bank, she wraps her cloak tighter against an unfamiliar chill. She tries to stay alert, to listen for the slither of a crocodile tail on mud or the stir of a hippo in water. Finally, though, adrenaline seeps away, and she loses the battle to stay awake. She sleeps until the unbroken dawn. She awakes with a start to voices further down the river. Stiff and cold, she remembers a decision taken before sleep won, and stretches, grabs her pack, slips out of the reeds, and saunters boldly back along the path. What choice does she have but to brazen it out? A little downstream, the crew of one of the huge wooden barges that transport grain is preparing to depart for the coastal trading ports. She joins the line of people bringing sacks of grain and other merchandise aboard. No one seems to take much notice of her. Her gamble might be working. The morning is chill and eerie. There has been no sunrise, no birdsong fills the air, and the calls of the crew are subdued in the semi-darkness. The usual riverside banter and bustle is absent. Nevertheless, the captain of the boat will sail as planned. The strange cloud and falling dust are unnerving, but the river is calm and unchanged, flowing steadily north as always. The captain stops her as she reaches his barge, her head bowed and her eyes on the ground. "What is your business?" he asks sharply. She has had little sleep, hasn't washed, and her head is covered in the coarse linen cloth she stole from her servant. Nevertheless, she sees the captain's eyes widen with surprise as she lifts her head to answer, and knows her rushed attempt at a disguise has failed. Almond eyes, high cheekbones, and the traces of the previous day's make-up all betray her high birth. She lifts her chin, although inside she shrinks under the captain's scrutiny. "I need to travel to Wajwur. Can you give me passage on your barge? I'm a gold trader and have gold and gems to sell." Her voice wobbles and fades away. The captain raises his eyebrows, calling her a liar without saying a word. But as he looks down at her, his gaze softens. Perhaps he sees his own daughters. Perhaps he too likes a gamble. Perhaps it's simply that money talks. Payment will be 1 deben. You may use some of your gems to pay for your passage, food and drink. He speaks brusquely. She reaches inside her pack to hunt for her turquoise collar. She can use stones from this to pay for her journey. Not here, you foolish girl. There are eyes and ears everywhere. We will sort payment on board. I'll throw you to the crocodiles if you cannot pay. And I would think of a better story than a gold trader if you don't want to be robbed before the morning is out, he adds softly. The captain's right. Although the river is far, far quieter than normal, there is still a scraping of the hawkers, traders and thieves found everywhere travellers gather. She catches the eye of a man sitting on the ground nearby, looking up at her, his expression sly and calculating. She hurries aboard, feeling his eyes follow her.
So they definitely like the crocodiles, Emma. You got a good croc reaction there. They're still talking about crocodiles. Matt says, Matt says, yeah, crocodiles in the story is always a good thing. And Johnny says, yeah, they keep it snappy. Thank you very much for that. This is okay, needs a bit of a shake, says Johnny. Much use of infinitive form of verb, says Galadriel. I find this distancing. We better if we're inside the protagonist's head. Rather, yeah, I so agree with that. Hannah, love authorial voice, kind of the same thing. Vagabond says, I think the trouble with this is I didn't have a strong reaction either way, and that Vagabond was our reader on that. Okay. Not good and not bad. Needs to get motoring, says Johnny. And Pamela Jo, really liked this. Egypt was usually a real hook for the YA age group, and that's true. There have been some big successes in that area. And Johnny says, I'm here all week. Yes. Yes. But unfortunately, Bob and Carol are only here for the next minute or two, so let's hear what they've got to say.
We're going to be eaten by cannibals.
Or crocodiles, take a pick.
Crocodiles!
I was going to say, the crocodiles got mentioned quite a bit there. The fisherman came into it. But no, it didn't really do a lot for me. I was waiting for something to raise it game. It seemed to be on a level playing field. This is somebody that's wanting to escape. I didn't get the desperation or the fear. It seemed just like a
stroll in the park,
a normal sort of path. I was waiting for the peaks and the troughs, or something to create fear, to give the writer a bit of a shock for a minute, or a little bit of fear. Just surrounded by crocodiles, etc. Some great descriptives. I really like those, but for me, I was waiting for something to happen, and it didn't happen yet. And I was waiting for something more.
I'd read on,
because of its setting.
Yeah, because of its setting, Egypt always is a pull for me. But, because of its setting. But I thought the writing was quite good. There's definitely a promise there.
Yeah, Michelle enjoyed it. Hannah says, I agree with this, Hannah. I don't think it will attract a YA reader. I want to talk about that in a moment, actually.
Yeah.
Matt says, a lot of authorial voice distancing me from the characters. It wasn't the fault of the crocs. Andy?
I think the good points are, I think props for a more kind of original YA setting, putting it in Egypt, being chased by the Pharaoh. That being said, being chased by the Pharaoh, protagonist in reeds by a riverbank, posing as his daughter and high birth. There's obviously shades of the beginning of the Moses story there, and I kind of like that. And again, like with the chat room's response, once you bring up crocodiles and hippos, again we're excited, aren't we? Because you're putting this in the place of Egypt, possibly being attacked by a hippo, which just isn't going to happen to me in Hove tonight. So with that in mind, I'm interested. There's a little bit. It reminded me. There's a YA book called Orphan Monster Spy, and I did wonder whether you'd read that, because there's a similar setup of a little girl on the run really early in the book. But I have to say, I agree with what's been said before, that there's something missing, and I did feel that distanced from your protagonist in that book. Without giving too much away, the little girl's mum is murdered within the first 5 minutes. So and there's a real pace to it as well. Yeah. So straight away you're like, I'm really with you. I think you need something like that to really put us there with your central character. I mean, you're doing really good with your showing. I think for actually most of the submissions tonight, maybe barring the previous one, on the Litopia, we did this thing. Well, I didn't do this thing, but about show versus tell.
Oh, very good.
I think there's a lot there that you could learn from, or just get some pointers on. But I thought it was okay. I think it had potential.
Okay, got potential. I thought it was very lyrical writing. I like that. I'm not sure it's quite the right voice for the YA. Yeah, that's the thing that bothered me. Well, can I just quickly say it's blue? Emma, have you noticed that? It was blue? You did that on purpose, did you? As a blue submission, the type you used was blue, and that immediately says crazy person. because it does, because we get all kinds of strange submissions, not just blue. No, possibly, yes. Or just what I said, crazy person. And the thing is that you don't send that message. Just make it nice, a bit conservative, a bit reserved in presentation. Make it look professional. Picking things out in colour, I just wouldn't do it. Actually, I wouldn't do it. Other people might have different views on that, but I just think play it safe, really. The thing that I'm thinking about here is. I was thinking, would you talk like this to your typical reader? You probably wouldn't. I've said this before tonight, and I thought about two authors. One of whom you may have heard of, the other you may not have done. And the first one is E. Nesbit. All right, so just reading E. Nesbit to our children when they were younger was a fascinating experience for me, because they just here is a Victorian lady, for heaven's sake, Victorian times, somebody 100+ years ago, who can still communicate directly with today's young person because her voice is just there, and it's just so interesting. And just try doing that. Beg, borrow, or steal, a kid of the right age, and just force them to sit down and read them E. Nesbit for 10-15 minutes and just watch their reactions. And there's another one, Lucy Boston, L.M. Boston, who wrote a whole series about a house called Green Knowe, Children of Green Knowe, and all the rest of it. And again, same thing going on there. A woman really from the first part of the 20th century. You would expect to be kind of stilted in expression and inhibited, and long sentences are convoluted, very slow pace, and so, but not at all. And again, just watching the reaction of the YA readers and how they instantly almost get hypnotized sometimes with the voice. It's just so interesting. And once you see that happening, you can see, well, how can I do that? How can I emulate it? What sort of tricks can I pull off there? And you got a 55. You got a 55. Nothing to be ashamed of at all. Congratulations, Emma. But I think everybody knows what the situation is now. Yeah, look at that. Greens all the way through James. This means two things for you. First of all, it means yes, you're a showman. But because we've had, 5 shows? No, four shows. We started a bit late this month. We have 4 shows the month. It also means, James, that you have jumped straight into the number 1 position for the whole month. Congratulations, mate. Oh, yes. Congratulations, you've done it. Well done. I'm very pleased. As you can see, the Blues and Twos, I think there's a police car outside at the moment it's either waiting for Bob and Carol, or it's possibly waiting for me. I don't know if I've said something to offend the Grammar Police today. It's quite possible. If you don't see me again next Sunday, you know what's happened. But if you do, well, please do join us next Sunday. It won't be Bob and Carol and Andy, for many thanks to whom, but it will be 2 more amazing guests. See you next week.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait! Okay, now. From the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
All young men with the suits and ties, just sitting in the crowd smoking big cigars. I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one, I'm the lady that will bring you down. There's a joint on the corner where the big boys play, where the whiskey's running like the rivers, but they all never come for the booze and bass. I'm the one, I'm the lady that'll rock this place. That'll rock this place. That'll rock this place. Rock this place. Rock this place. Rock this big boys